All right, guys, so today we're going to be talking about Marlon Brando. So this is a guy that I actually have always really looked up to as far as his ability to just have this sort of charismatic, naturally attractive kind of personality. And when I was researching, guys that I wanted to basically emulate, he was someone I just kept coming back to. Now, I have an acting background, and studying method acting when I was in university and through high school, he was always sort of the high watermark of what you could achieve. And what was interesting is that when I went back and looked at some of these scenes where he plays this character that's just naturally attractive, a lot of his early roles, he has this sort of ability about the way he acts that you can kind of look at these scenes now from a modern perspective, 2017, and look at these situations that he's in where he's attracting these women, and it still kind of like works today. A lot of these older movies, you go back and you look at these sort of scenes where the guy, attracts the woman, and it seems just very forced. It seems very old-timey, something that wouldn't really work in a modern perspective. But with Brando, you watch these scenes and, you think to yourself, if I saw this playing out in a bar in 2017, it would work exactly the same way. So in that way, I think a lot of his performances when it comes to portraying that character are still very fresh and very relevant. So I wanted to take a look at a certain scene from the movie The Wild One today and just break down a little bit about what's going on in this scene and why I think it works so well. Now, on the script, in this scene, basically what it was Brando goes into, playing his character in The Wild One, goes into a bar, orders a beer from the girl who works there, and that's it. Now, that's basically, when you read the script, all that really happens. He goes in, orders a beer, and there's a little back and forth, maybe a line or two, but that's it. Now, something that, if you looked at that script and you think about how it would play out on film, it shouldn't be something that would take more than, maybe 20, 30 seconds max. But this scene is about 3 minutes long. Now, one thing I want you to realize is that Brando is doing a lot of this stuff in this scene completely off the cuff. Now, the director knew that and allowed him to do it, but a lot of the stuff that he does in this scene is stuff that was not written in the script. And in fact, the other actors in the scene, so the woman in this case, didn't know what he was going to do. So a lot of these things you see him do with his body and his body language are just completely made up on the spot. And I believe he actually did this scene on the first take. I'll have to look into that more, but that's what I've been told. So let's just take a look at the scene and see what happens.
I was too old to be driving an automobile. Where was he going anyway?
All right, so right away you see the older fellow there is really from the old school of acting. Not method acting like Brando became famous for. And you can kind of tell the way he talks, very over-enunciated, very theatrical in his performance. So this is Brando here on the left on the motorcycle.
Call the militia.
Notice the way that he moves, even just taking the string off of the trophy that he won in the bike race. There's not really any theatricality to it. Normally when you see these sorts of movements, what's called blocking in acting, they're very scripted. And the way that Brando does it, and this was something he was known for, later in his career, how he'd always sort of manipulate objects in scenes. It's very natural, very just sort of, he's just untying the lace from the trophy just to get it. And almost, it's like he slowed it down a bit. This is something I go over when I talk about body language, how every movement has a purpose, and you can call attention to the movement by slowing it down and creating a more of a subtext to the action. Let's keep going. His interest is piqued. Again, casually removing the gloves. Notice the way that he just sort of owns the space. He comes in, he looks around, he plays with the seats. Now, not only is that part of his character in this film, just this sort of, kind of brash, has this devil-may-care, marches to the beat of his own drum kind of attitude. But it's also something that you'd associate with the kind of person that Brando was, I guess, known for in his life. I mean, this is one of the most interesting aspects, I think, of Brando, is that in reality, he was nothing like the characters that he ended up playing a lot when he was younger. And this is something that the public doesn't really know, and I don't think knew at the time either, is that in reality, Brando was actually a very shy person. You know, he lived by himself with cats. He wasn't the character that he often portrayed in these films. And what's interesting about that is that he often, when he would be asked in interviews, especially later on in his life, when they said, how did you play these characters that were so they were so attractive. They just had this sort of nonchalance about their abilities to just sort of be that charismatic, really attractive kind of character. And his answer, and I read this in a book, I can't for the life of me remember which one it was, but the answer that I read stuck with me for a long time. And the answer that he gave was that he ends up channeling it, was, his answer. Essentially what he would do is he'd think, and this was, related to his acting style. I believe he studied under Stella Adler, the Stanislavski method acting approach. And one of the things that I guess that he did in order to get these inspired performances was that he would channel it. So he would just think, I'm this character in this scene. What would he do in this moment? And I don't think there was even that much preparation that went on. And I guess Brando was known for this in the sense that he didn't like preparing necessarily for his scenes. He would prefer to do them on the spot, which of course, many people have heard the stories of him writing his lines on, the back of people's heads or on his hands and whatnot, just so he wouldn't have to focus too much on preparing the dialogue beforehand. And I think this is evident in scenes like this where he just sort of is living this character, and all these little actions that he's doing are sort of coming from this headspace of, this is just who I am. I'm this person that is in this scene living through this moment. And I think once you see the woman's acting in this as well, she kind of has this feeling of almost she's getting to witness something that she hasn't really seen before, not only as her character in the film, but also as an actress seeing Brando perform in this way. And it's just very interesting, a lot of the levels that are going on here with that. So let's keep going. Again, look at the way that he looks at her right there. Wow.
Do you want something?
Look at his body language and look at the angle of his shoulders. I often talk about 45-degree angles being the sort of preferred angle when you're actually presenting yourself to someone and you want to have that sort of attractive, confident, sort of charismatic kind of feel about you. 45-degree angles are used in film and photography all the time. That's what's going on here. The angle of Brando to her is a 45-degree angle. He's facing the camera head on, but the camera, obviously, unless you're breaking the fourth wall, doesn't exist in this scene. So it's interesting because I don't know if it was something that he did naturally or the director wanted him to do it, but he is presenting himself in the optimal way for attracting someone and getting that sort of reaction. So just interesting thing to note. Also note his posture. He's very laid back. He's taking up space. He's relaxed. His eyes are kind of what you'd call, I guess, like half glazed or whatever. Essentially, he's just showing that he's extremely comfortable, almost to a degree in which, especially during this time, is a bit weird. Even to be that comfortable is a bit strange. But again, it goes along with his character, this biker, from out of town coming in and disrupting the sort of straight-laced goings-ons of the town. So anyway, interesting to note.
I'd like a bottle of beer.
Beer's just in the bar.
Oh, all righty.
So again, you notice there was kind of two different conversations going on there. There was her saying there's, beer's just at the bar, as if you can't order a beer here. And then him going, oh, all right. Now you can even tell, even within the scene, he's overacting it a little bit. And it's not overacting for the sake of the audience. He's overacting as sort of a communication to that character within the scene to say, oh, I know what's really going on here is that I'm kind of flirting with you and you're not picking up on it. Or at least if you are, you're making it seem like you're not. So I'm going to play along with this little facade going on that you're the person running the bar. We're not, we're not real people. I'm just a customer, and you're the, the person, the barkeep. It's just an interesting little thing going on there that is a very subtle way of going about acting in this scene that I thought was really interesting. And again, the same thing happens when you're, talking to women. In reality, often, especially when you first meet them, there is that sort of, those pleasantries, those social, faux pas you don't want to break when you first start a conversation, that if you can acknowledge them using your subtext, you can have an underlying communication going on there. And that's what was going on in the scene. And you can see it with her eyes and her body language, that although she's presenting herself one way, her thoughts are communicating something different. And again, that's subtext. Again, so he's marching to the beat of his own drum here. He's playing this, this music on the record and is dancing and doesn't care, what people would think of him doing that. Now he's doing this as a way to get her to open up, which he already recognized earlier that she's having trouble doing. She's still having that sort of stiff, I have to be appropriate, I can't be my real self, sort of wearing that face, and he's trying to break that down. And he continues this. Looks at her before taking a drink. Again, trying to open her up, trying to get her to drop that little that role she's playing. I believe he kind of sized her up there, and that was kind of a sexual communication. They had to be careful, obviously, in the in the 50s when this movie was released. They couldn't be necessarily too explicit. So sometimes even those little casual glances to that audience would be seen a lot differently than today's audience. No one would put past a guy kind of glancing down a little bit as the woman walks away. But this was done very subtly, but at the same time, that audience would have picked up on that. And that, again, his character is again communicating this sort of this raw sexuality about him that is obviously was communicated just with that look. So in the real movie, there's a scene between this, which is why there's kind of a weird little transition there. All right, now look at this shot. Now this is something that I studied a lot. When I was learning body language, this scene, or I guess this framing here, this shot is something that I looked at a lot because he's doing a lot in this shot. So he's, again, 45-degree angle. That's I've already mentioned that as being a big thing when you're trying to communicate this charisma, this confidence, this virility. That is what you want to do, is that 45-degree angle. Now his head is tilted up and he's kind of looking down a little bit. This is something you'll see. There's a lot of people that use this to their advantage. Jim Morrison, I mentioned, we do this all the time. He got it from Marilyn Monroe, who did the same thing. There's just this sort of, again, it communicates this charisma, this confidence about your character, but it also has this sort of sexual appeal, especially when the eyes are kind of half glazed like that. It communicates this kind of sexuality that obviously Marilyn Monroe really used to her advantage, but Brando here is doing the same thing, and obviously part of this has to do with the cinematography as well. So credit where it's due. But this is, I think, probably one of the most iconic shots of Brando, certainly from this film. And it really just has all these things going for it, which again, to that modern audience, I mean, look at his look. Look at the way that he's looking at her. That's not a polite, I just met you kind of look. There's lust here. There's desire. And it's very powerful. Again, she's almost speechless, doesn't know. See, she almost breaks out. She picks up on that gaze and then is, she feels it, but then again has to resort back to her the face she has to wear. Oh, I'm the barkeep. I'm the nice girl. I have to, be myself, in quotations, again.
you live here all the time?
All my life.
So, we've been over to Carbonville at the meet.
Bunch of motorcycles came through this way yesterday.
Notice that pause. He doesn't answer her right away, just looks at her. Again, communicating that there's two different conversations going on here. There's the surface level conversation, and then there's the subtextual conversation. And the subtextual conversation is one of flirting. It's one of, there's a connection going on between these two characters. He likes her. He's communicating that to her. She's kind of picking up on it. He's kind of breaking her down right now. She's opening up a bit, getting some real emotions. Speaking from her true emotions a little bit when she's, answering or asking those questions and talking to him about it. But just interesting how this plays out over the course of just, a few minutes.
They didn't stop. Is that what they give you in those races for killing yourself?
That's right. You want it? Hmm? Well, go on, take it. Go ahead.
Again, that was a great little line there. Do you want it? I believe that was almost 100% improvised, judging from her reaction as well, because you can kind of tell that she's from the old school of acting a little bit. You can kind of tell when she's stops her script and has to ad-lib a bit, and you can tell with that line that the way that she reacts to that is it sounds like it's an ad-lib, and it's just like a perfect Brando moment. Where not only is that an interesting line, but it's totally in character to be from this guy who's supposed to be the going against the grain, this guy that is from outside of the town and doesn't follow the rules, and part of that of course is in within the context of the scene not even playing along with the proper script. So it's her reaction I think to that is genuine. And you get a really sort of real sense of flirtatiousness going on there.
No, come on. You can't do that. You won it. You have to get your name engraved on it or whatever you do.
Now, watch the way that he takes a drink of his beer.
It's important to you. You don't give something like that away just like that. Not unless you knew a girl real well and you liked her.
Now, you notice I said earlier, when you want to add that subtext to actions, to movements, the way you do it is you slow it down almost as if to call attention to it. And that's exactly what he's doing here. He's not just taking a drink of his beer because he's thirsty or he's likes drinking in the daytime or because he's a badass or whatever. He's taking a drink of his beer as a way to sort of communicate a message to her. And again, it's all subtextual. But look at the way that he looks at her. Look at the way he holds eye contact, slowly brings the bottle to his lips, takes a drink, and then releases it. As if that action itself said so much more than he could possibly say. Now, again, she's going on about how, he deserves the trophy and, he should keep it and all this sort of stuff. And he's just sort of admiring her and giving a look that kind of says, I like that you said that. Now you're being yourself. Now you're showing your true sweetness and not, just being the barkeep or the uptight girl from the small town. This is important, because it kind of makes that big shift in the film when he kind of realizes that, I like this girl and there is a connection here.
Hey, Johnny,
Yo!
about this town. They got a dock here.
They're gonna rewire Crazy. Hey, what are we gonna do? Sit around and scratch ourselves?
Now, something very interesting here. Notice when the guys come in, they're coming in, off frame. Look at Brando's body language. He doesn't even turn his shoulders to talk to them. He turns his head, but not his shoulders. They're sort of outside their bubble. And he has power over them. So he's the leader, obviously, right? So they're asking him what they should do. Now, you notice even their voices are about an octave higher than Brando's. It's almost like they're trying to sound a little bit more higher pitched. And again, this just reinforces this the idea that he's the leader, he's the one in charge, and he has the power in this scene. Not only in this scene, I suppose, but even the goings-ons of what's happening within the town. One of their guys got all hurt. Are they going to stick around in the town and wait till he gets fixed, or are they going to take off? And, in this scene, well, you'll see here.
Yeah, we gonna wait for Crazy, or we gonna get out of this dump?
So she looks to him. What are you going to do?
We're gonna wait for Crazy.
We're going to wait for crazy. So again, this is showing her something about his character, right? He's the guy that is not just going to take off because they got to get out of there, even though their friend is hurt. He's going to wait. They're going to wait. They're going to wait until their friend is good so that they can leave. And it just says a little thing about his character, right? It's kind of like the classic trope, I guess, of the bad guy with the heart of gold. And that's kind of what he's communicating there, that although everyone sees him as this type of character, there's different layers to him. There's more to him than just that, badass guy that does, bad things with his gang and drives a motorcycle and is just a bad influence. There's some good in him, and there's some respectable qualities. And that's what she noticed in that little scene. So this was the scene I wanted to show, guys. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Again, if you have any interest in learning about, I guess, body language or confidence, Brando is a great guy to look at. I prefer looking at his early films because, like I said, I think that when he was first starting, he would do this sort of this channeling that he would, I mentioned earlier, where a lot of the characters he was playing have this very strong realism to them. And I think it's not that he lost it later on. He was a brilliant actor his entire life. But the fact that he wasn't like that in real life when he was younger, I think as he got older and he sort of became Brando, I guess, and lived the Hollywood lifestyle, I think a lot of those qualities that people assumed about him kind of became true. He did stop being probably as shy as he was, and he did date beautiful women and sort of probably have more confidence in himself as time went on. And in a way, because when you look at interviews with him when he got older, he almost became it's almost like he became a version of himself, like as if he was acting a version of himself that he thought the public felt he should act like. And I guess that's a bit of a complicated way of putting it, but I just feel like his early performances, there's something about them that I don't see as much in the later performances. So especially when it comes to being, that sort of having that charisma and showing those sort of attractive qualities. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm going to continue this series. This is just the first one of, again, what I call the Icons of Suave. I'll be doing another one next month. In the meantime, I just released a product called Authentic Attraction on lovesystems.com, where I go over for 3 hours different aspects of how to understand, meet, and attract women, using a lot of the same sort of methodology that I kind of hinted at in this video. We go over body language in one of the modules. And we also have the super conference happening in Las Vegas this August 25th to the 27th, which will be a lot of fun. And we're going to have all the different Love Systems instructors there teaching pretty much everything you can think of when it comes to becoming this sort of fearless, more attractive and successful man. So I encourage you to check that out and sign up if you would like to come to Vegas to talk to me and meet the other instructors. But that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And again, please like, subscribe, and comment down at the bottom, and I will see you next time.